You might say that the D500 is the camera that everyone's been waiting for. Or you could say it's the camera that no one's been waiting for. It was announced yesterday, and it was a bit of a surprise even to many of those who follow the industry quite closely. Now, no one besides insiders at Nikon have had this camera in their hands yet, so take anything that I say or what anyone else says with a grain of salt at this point. Yes, the specifications have been published, and we'll review some of them, but I never know whether I like a camera or not until I'm shooting with it in my own hands. What is the Nikon D500? It's the spiritual and very tangible successor to this D300S here. It was announced alongside a detailed announcement of the Nikon D5. Just as the D300S was the little brother of the Nikon D3, the D500 is the little brother of the upcoming Nikon D5. I'm going to tell you what I looked for right away when the D500 was announced. Because I've shot with the D2X, D300S, D800, D810, I look at the top of the camera. The D500 has the control layout of the upper tier Nikon cameras. In fact, I was quite surprised last year when the D750 did not have the more advanced control layout. So for me to be taken seriously, the D500 passes the first test, control layout. There's nothing wrong with the D750, D610, D7200, and the others. My preference, especially when I'm shooting with multiple bodies though, is to have the same control scheme across the cameras that I'm using. If you've shot with the D300S, D4, D3, D750, or even the D200 or D2X, you may know that there's a big difference in the speed and handling of those cameras compared to, say, the D3300 or D7200, or even the FX D610 and DF. And for me, it's a huge difference. I want the camera snapping into focus when there's a lot of light, when there's almost no light, and I want a ton of autofocus sensors, especially when I'm tracking action. Nikon is saying that the D500 has its autofocus DNA from the D5 and almost the same speed. The D500 boasts 10 frames per second, and they claim to be using the 153-point autofocus system and internal processor as the D5. Personally, I'll have to try them both out. The same specifications doesn't always mean the same speed, reliability, and performance. Oh, 4K video. That's kind of expected nowadays though. In terms of durability, Nikon removed the pop-up flash and are claiming D810 levels of durability. Now, the D810 has the pop-up. It's not essential because you have many options for the hot shoe, but it's quite a surprising omission given the DX market that Nikon is catering to with this camera. And that's the interesting question, the catering. 2 or 3 years ago, this camera would have been a phenom, and it still will be when it launches. But what I mean to say is that this is the camera that D300S owners like me have been thirsty for. But many of us have moved on. We've traded in our DX gear and have committed to overall slower cameras with larger sensors. I feel like a D400 a couple years ago with these specs would have really kept the ball rolling with Nikon on DX, although in all likelihood, it would have cannibalized some of their FX business, so I get it. You'll almost never hear me say this, especially about Nikon, but the D500 almost feels like too little too late. I'm sure it's a great sensor, and I'm glad that they're finally bringing 4K video to the table, but that's a Me Too feature at this point. I love the fact that it's a fast, durable DSLR body. That's my mainstay. But at this point, it seems like they could do all of this in an FX package smaller than the D5 and really win the day. The top pros will still flock to the flagship D5, while the next level down, who want something more compact but still mighty, could buy up the D500 with an FX sensor. For me, DX versus FX matters little, as I've got lenses up and down the range for both. Personally, I'm excited about the camera. I'm enthusiastic about almost any camera, especially Nikon, so newer and better is always exciting for me. For the broader market, my fear is that this really is too little, too late, or both. If it were an FX sports-oriented companion to the D810, I think it would fly off the shelves. DX shooters who have stuck with DX, well, If they're going to spend a couple thousand on a body, many will look straight at FX, although I would argue that DX is plenty capable, and I still shoot and shoot and shoot with my D300S. Now, these are just my opinions, and there are plenty more specs that I have not covered. The specs are really easy to come by, and I'll put a link or two in the description of this video. In the meantime, let me know what you think. Can the market support a flagship cropped sensor pro-level body in 2016? Or has the DSLR market moved on to full frame? And does this D500 therefore occupy an odd place in the market? Let me know what you think in the comments.